A poet once said, أنت الذي ولدتك أمك باكيا. You are the one whom, when your mother gave birth to you, you were crying, right? When the baby is born, the first thing he does is cries, right? You are the one, when your mother gave birth to you, you were crying, while the people around you were joyful and laughing. So go through this life in a way so that when you die and people around you would now be crying, you would be joyful and laughing. You need to reverse that. When you were born, you were crying and people around you were joyful. So run through this life in a way where when you die and people around you would be crying for your death, you would actually be happy and joyful. I say this and I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness for all of us. We take a break and we come back, inshallah, after salah. Guys, the journey of the faithful believer, when he's about to die, the angels descend down on him. And he would have 4 feelings that would be worrying feelings, and then they would comfort him. He would be afraid. Allah would send them to tell him, don't be afraid. He would be sad for the people that he left behind. Allah would send them to tell him that he should not feel sad, because Allah is going to take care of the people, like the weak people he left behind. He would be wondering, where am I heading, Al-Jannah or An-Nar? Allah would tell the angels, tell him that he is going to Al-Jannah. And then he would be wondering alone. They would be telling him that they will be with him, supporting him during this time when he is about to leave the life, until all the way when he's admitted Al-Jannah. And then that ayat is ended with نُزُلًا مِّنْ غَفُورٍ رَحِيمٍ, meaning that this person is going to be a guest of Allah. I want you to imagine a guest of Allah. Would Allah put him in a situation where he would be worried any time during that journey? A guest of Allah? No way. It is going to be a happy journey throughout. The angel of death comes and takes the soul. So easy. The angel of death would be looking lovely. The angels of mercy would come and take that soul, put it in that wrapping from Al-Jannah, perfume it from perfume of Al-Jannah, and they would go up to the heavens. All the angels would greet it. Allah would greet it, and then Allah would ask that the soul gets sent back to the earth. On its way, the souls of the relatives and friends who died before him, who were faithful believers, they would come and gather around him to ask him questions, and then the angels would tell them, leave him, just rest. He's just come from that world of trouble. Leave him to rest. And then the soul goes back to the earth because he needs to be buried. And we mentioned that the resemblance of death is sleep. This is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when people die, Allahu yatawaffa al-anfusa hina mawtiha wallati lam tamut fi manamiha. Meaning Allah withdraws the souls. When people sleep, Allah withdraws the souls. And then those whom Allah wants them to continue to live, He would return the soul back to them when they wake up. Now, the scholars say that when that soul is withdrawn, when someone is sleeping, it would be withdrawn, but it would still have some connection to the person, like a satellite connection. The soul has been withdrawn, as Allah says in the Quran, Allahu yatawaffa al-anfusa hina mawtiha wallati lam tamut fi manamiha. I could refer you to a verse in the Quran for those who would like. It is Surah Az-Zumar, chapter 39. Surah Az-Zumar, chapter 39, verse 42. Allahu yatawaffa al-anfusa hina mawtiha wallati lam tamut fi manamiha. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala withdraws the souls for the people who sleep, and then when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to send him back to life after he finished sleep, he would return back the soul. But then those whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordained that they shall die does not return the soul back. So some people sleep and would never wake up because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would not return the soul back. And for those who, while someone is sleeping, you would look at a sleeping person sometimes and you really see he looks as if he's dead. You know, the soul would just have a partial connection, just a partial connection to the soul. And from this, here comes when people have true vision, ar-ru'ya, true vision. Some people say that that soul, when it leaves the person, when he is sleeping, that soul goes to the world of the unknown, the world of the alam al-ghayb, the world of the unseen, the world of the unseen. It's not unknown. We know about it enough, as much as Allah wants us to know. So, death is like sleep. Remember, I would like to remind that I will be asking some questions at the end. I would like for, by children, I mean people who are not parents. Okay? Everybody who are not parents, raise your hands. I want to ask, what is death like? In the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us what's death like. Can anybody tell me what's death like? Any of the children? Girls or boys? Raise your hands. Someone? What's death like? Anyone coming with an answer? There will be a reward. Okay? Nobody? And the girls? What's death like? We just mentioned it, right? What is death like? Yeah, explain it to your children. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, He tells us death. What's death like? I mean, it's like sleeping. It is like sleeping. So this is why, you know, when you sleep and you wake up, thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He has given you another chance. Okay? This is what it really means. I mean, we are listening to this not only for knowledge and not to enjoy that we now know more. Every time you wake up, remember that Allah had already withdrawn your soul, but He has returned it back. Every time you wake up, thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He has given you another chance. So, that soul now goes back, goes to the ground, to earth, and then the dead person is carried, and as he is carried, his funeral, the funeral, would be saying, قَدِّمُونِ قَدِّمُونِ, meaning, hurry up, take me to the grave, take me. It has already known that it's heading for heaven, right? For Al-Jannah. I mean, that person has already been told. Now he just wants those formalities to finish so that he settles in this next life. He just wants this formality to finish. This is why Prophet Muhammad ﷺ says in the hadith that the funeral would be saying, قَدِّمُونِ قَدِّمُونِ, hurry. But the funeral of the disbeliever would be so scared. It would want to hold on. That's why some people say, we're carrying him, although he's light, he appeared to be so heavy. Some people say that. And some people say, subhanAllah, I mean, as if he was flying when we were carrying him. Now this does not mean that you have to realize that every time. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala might make karamat. Karamat meaning a special gifts to some people for, you know, their goodness in this life to be known to people. So they put that person in the grave and they put the sand on top of him, and then Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam tells us that the soul gets connected back with the body. Now we know that when we talk about the body, this is something that you have to understand that, you know, you just have to take it as it is, because no matter what we are told, the next world is just different. And I would always like to go back to the example of the womb and the brother who left out. There is no way he can describe to him that world. So, even if somebody gets burned in a volcano, the soul gets and connects back to something which is called body. It's in the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then the person, as Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, he would be able to hear the footsteps of the last person leaving the graveyard. He would be able to hear the footsteps of the last person leaving the graveyard. And then the angels come to him and they ask him 3 questions. Okay? Those 3 questions are, I want the children to listen. I'm hoping that somebody will answer. I'm going to ask you this question shortly. What I'm going to say now, I'm going to ask it because you really need to pay attention to that. This is what you need to work through this life. They ask him 3 questions when he's in the grave. Man Rabbuk? Who is your Lord? Man Rabbuk? Who is your Lord? Ma Dinuk? What is your religion? And then Man Nabiyuk? Who is your prophet? Man Rabbuk? Who is your Lord? Man Nabiyuk? What is your religion? What is Ma Dinuk? What is your religion? Man Nabiyuk? Who is your prophet? Now, as I mentioned earlier, that person has already passed the test. There are, everything that the person would be encountering after that, you shouldn't really think about it as a test. So many people say that this is a test. It's not really a test. It is a way of demonstrating what that person was living in his life. Because, have you ever seen a test where a teacher gives you the question and then he comes and whispers the answer to you? Would that really be a test? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who sends the angels to ask that question, and it's Allah who enables them to answer the right question. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran says, يُثَبِّتُ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا بِالْقَوْلِ الثَّابِتِ فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ. Meaning, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keeps firm with the word, the firm word, which is La ilaha illallah. He keeps them firm. He keeps them firm, confident in this life and in the hereafter. And Mufassirin say, this is when they get asked these 3 questions. The angels ask them, and Allah tells him the answer, and he answers. This is not a test. This is just a formality to demonstrate what were the bases of his life. I would like to ask a question now, and someone needs to answer. What are the 3 questions? Yes, please. Stand up, and tell me, what is your name?
My name is Muhammad.
Muhammad. What are the 3 questions?
Who is your Lord? What religion are you? And who is your prophet?
Okay, now, the person would answer. When they ask him, who is your Lord? He would say, Allah. And when they ask him, what is your religion? He would say, Muslim. And they tell him, who is your prophet? Prophet Muhammad. Now, in honor for this, who answered, all of the children here were 50 riyals. So parents, please pay your children 50 riyals each. We promised a reward, okay? So you see, but I mean children, it doesn't matter what the age is. I mean, if I had my 27-year-old son with me, I would have given him 50 riyals. So all parents, give your children 50 riyals each. I'm going to ask a question at the end to the fathers. Remember. And there will also be a reward. So now we have to think. Who's going to pay for it? As soon as... This is not a real test. Because the test, sometimes something can go wrong in the test. Someone would study day and night for an examination, and then in the exam he would have a headache, gets mixed up, he fails. Although he studied very hard, he deserved to succeed, but something goes wrong, he fails. This cannot happen.